Well, it looks like the guys in Hruodland design department just can't do a simple homage. This is the second watch from this brand on the channel, and after the first one sent me down the rabbit hole of horological history, I thought this second watch will be pretty much straightforward. It is kinda simple, good looking, but still pretty much straightforward vintage looking diver. Well, was I wrong or was I wrong? So what exactly am I talking about here? Well, you might have guessed it. We have it here. Let's find out. Hello and welcome back. So what we have here is a homage to a very interesting watch which did have its share of controversy, and we will go over the details of that in a moment. However, even if we ignore the controversy and just look at this diver, well, the first thing that came to my mind was how inviting and cozy it looks and actually feels. Putting it on is like putting on your favorite pair of jeans or whatever else you consider your most favorite and comfortable wear. Well, at least that was my first impression. I was even thinking of naming this review something in lines of wears like your favorite jumper or something to that effect. However, while being very attractive, there are areas where some compromises were made, at least from my perspective, and it would be definitely useful to go over those compromises before considering this watch, and we will of course go into the details over those areas too. But before we do, for full transparency, Hruodland did send me this watch for review and they don't want it back. However, this time, apart from the usual expectations of me sharing a comprehensive review of this watch, Hruodland also requested a favor, and that is to bring it to your attention ahead of the upcoming 11/11 sale. They plan some serious discounts during this largest sale event of the year, and if you're watching this review before or during this sale, I encourage you to take a full advantage of those discounts. All the necessary links, of course, will be in the description of this video. So the design, or rather the inspiration behind it, because to be fair, Hruodland did very little deviation here from the script, so to speak. So what we have here is a homage to Omega Seamaster 300, reference number 165024, also known as the second generation Omega Seamaster 300. This watch was produced between 1964 and 1970s and preceded the more recent and more familiar looking Seamaster 300 versions. So basically this is the genesis of one of the Omega's flagship models, and it is very much thought after by collectors. Right, so this is all nice and dandy. Where is controversy in that? Well, the controversy actually happened around 2011, about 45 years after this watch was discontinued. As it turned out, there were a lot of spare parts of this particular model in stocks of some ex-Omega service centers, so much so that some of those service centers had enough parts to assemble a fully working watches, which, while not assembled by Omega, still contained all the Omega genuine parts. And of course, those service centers started selling those newly assembled watches. To be fair, they were very much transparent about the origins of those new vintage divers. However, as you can imagine, this whole story didn't go down well with Omega at all. There is some more information and even reviews of those Franken, I guess, watches that still float around the interweb if you're interested to learn more. Now, as for this Hruodland, all the parts here, as far as I'm aware, are all made by Hruodland. Okay, the movement is made by Seiko, to be perfectly pedantic, so this is all good. However, couldn't they just make a homage to a normal Seamaster 300 like other brands? Well, to be honest, I'm kind of glad they didn't. So, dimensions, we have here 41mm diameter, 20mm lugs, case height of 13.1mm, which is kinda expected on a diver with Seiko NH35 movement inside, and measuring lug to lug, we have a very well managed 47.7mm distance, which should make this watch suitable for wrists starting from about 5 3/4 of an inch. The comfy suede leather strap should cover up to 8 1/4 of an inch or 21cm wrists in circumference, and this watch weighs 77 grams, and while we're on the subject of dimensions and specifications, this watch is powered by well-reputed and reliable Seiko NH35 movement, which is great. The only slight niggle here, I guess, is that this movement has a date function which results in the ghost position of the crown. Not a big deal actually, however, no date version of this movement, NH38, would probably be more appropriate here. So now that we covered that this is an Omega homage, the intricately sculpted twisted lugs make more sense. A design feature that we find on a lot of Omega watches. It is a full stainless steel construction case, the flanks feature a horizontal brushing and the elegantly twisted bevels that run along the sides of the case are mirror polished. The right side of the case is slightly more prominent than the left one, which also serves as crown guards for a screw-down crown at 3-o'clock position. The screw-down crown is well proportioned, however, it is not signed. Okay, it does go with the vintage aesthetics, however, personally I would prefer some kind of branding on the crown. Now flipping the case over and we have a very tastefully decorated screw-on back case. Looks like a laser-etched engraving of swordfish or some kind of sea creature as we would expect on a Retro Diver homage. The case has declared 200 meters of water resistance, so there should be no issues for swimming or even skin diving, which makes perfect sense on a diver watch. Another dive watch feature here is this 120 clicks unidirectional bezel, and to be honest, I'm quite impressed with the way this bezel looks. I might not be impressed with the functionality, but I'll get to it in a moment. Right, so starting with the grip, a well-machined kind of gear-like grip is very comfortable, so this is good. Also, I really like the proportions and the design of this bezel. It looks somewhat unusual and yet it works with the overall look of the case. It is a bit of a bummer that I cannot praise Hruodland for such a brilliant design, however, again, the execution is really good. Now, the bezel insert, which looks like it is made out of mineral glass, yes, I tested, it is not sapphire, so the bezel insert has the markings printed on the inside, which is also good because it means that the markings will not be easily scratched. And what I also like is that the bezel is fully loomed, and not only it is loomed, the loom is also bicolor with a mix of C3 and BGW Superluminova, as we will see just now when we'll look at the loom performance. So this is great, so what is not so good then? Well, the bezel action. Okay, to be fair, the resistance is just right, so not a problem, and even the tolerances are good, so there is almost no side of vertical play in this bezel, which is also a positive. However, there is a slight back play, not terrible, but definitely noticeable, and bezel action sounds a bit hollow. And because of this slight back play, the bezel alignment is not always spot on. To be perfectly objective, this bezel action will probably outperform most Seiko divers under $500 and possibly the original Omega from 1964 that this watch is homaging. However, it is definitely not as crisp as some divers from AliExpress that I handled recently. And here is how this bezel sounds. Right, in regards to the dial is executed very well. I really like the rich brown background, which works very well with the suede leather strap and the colors on our indices and bezel markings. Everything is printed on this dial, including the Hruodland logo under the 12 o'clock. Everything is well spaced and the dial looks well balanced. Not having a date window, I guess, kinda helps to preserve this balance, so all of you no-date purists, rejoice! The sword-style hands are also well proportioned. The hands are well finished too, with high-polished framing around the loomed filled centers. The high-polished edges of the hands allow for a nice light bounce, making the dial very legible even in low-light conditions. And here is the loom footage. Similar to the bezel, the loom on the dial is made out of two colors. I knew I'm dealing with 200-meter water-resistant diver watch, so I was expecting a decent loom. However, I was still pleasantly surprised by the loom performance. It is pretty good, especially for the price point. Right, the crystal that we have here is K1 mineral boxed crystal, which according to Hruodland product listings is also coated with diamond film outside for enhanced scratch resistance. It is definitely better than just a simple K1 glass. How is it compared to sapphire crystal? Well, I'm not entirely sure. I would speculate that sapphire will still be more scratch resistant. However, having said that, a Swiss company Martin Tudor, which uses similar coating on some of their watches, tried to convince me otherwise a few years ago. Okay, after a couple of weeks of on and off the wrist, the crystal still looks pristine, but I'm not sure if this is long enough testing. If someone is an expert on the subject of diamond coating, please do let us know in the comments. Okay, that's about the crystal materials. However, what about the looks? Well, the look is really good, fitting perfectly to the style of this watch. The crystal deals with the reflections really well, and it is also slightly domed, and all the gentle curves provide nice and soft distortions, which I really like. And no, it is not that kind of distortions that you are wondering what are you actually looking at. No, the distortions are actually nice and subtle and don't really impact the dial legibility. As for the bracelet, it is a very comfortable suede leather strap. The stitching is accurate, we have two keepers here as we would expect, and we even get quick release spring bars, which is very handy. And the strap is equipped with well-sculpted quality stainless steel buckle, which is also signed. And here is how this diver wears on my about 7-inch wrist. Right, so what's my verdict? Well, for the current price point, this is a very compelling package, and for the 1111 price, well, frankly, it is a steal of a deal. I found Hruodland to be a very interesting brand. I really like that they are experimenting with slightly not your average mainstream homages. And if you want to see another Hruodland homage that absolutely blew me away, well, click this link on the screen over here. Don't forget to like this video and of course subscribe. Thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next video.